call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock.
We're in the presence of royalty,
The budget
though.
was, that was with
I guess. I will go ahead and start with adoption of the agenda. So the agenda is in front of you.
Yeah, I think.
I will move to adopt our agenda.
Motion by Eric,
Second.
second by Jake. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, motion carries. All right, approval of, we'll start with the September 13th meeting, the board meeting on September 13th. If there's no changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the September 13th meeting.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve it.
Motion by Eric,
Second.
second by Greg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, the September 13th meeting minutes are approved, and then the October 6th work session minutes.
That was a quick turnaround.
There's no changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Jake Pierce. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign. That motion carries. All right, community dialogue. Are you community? This is here to hang out with us? Cool, awesome, hey.
Sure.
All right, this is the smallest crowd we've had in 2 years. Took us 2 years to get back here.
It's true.
And you know what, I'm okay with that today.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to report from the Junior Bulldogs.
So at the end of last school year, we decided to end the cheer program. There were some issues that came up, so that was the best course of action for the board. At this point in time, we have no plans on reintroducing that. Summer sport camps were awesome. We had great turnouts. We did volleyball, football, poms, and baseball. Volleyball and baseball both had 50 plus kids, so really good turnouts. With those camps, we're gonna be able to give those teams combined about $5,500 back. So it was a good summer for only having 4 camps.
Yeah.
Our wrestling program is planning a camp in November. We're hoping for the 18th, that is tentatively scheduled. And then their season will start the week after Thanksgiving, go through the end of March, and then hopefully we'll be having a tournament again this year, the end of March. With our profits from last wrestling season, we were hoping to help purchase a new wrestling mat in the old wrestling room up here. That's kind of a stalemate, so we've earmarked that money at this point in time, and we'll figure out how we're gonna get that back into the school and the programs. Some of that money will go to parents' costs to help purchase uniforms and keep their registration costs down. Baseball skills and drills Sundays were supposed to start last Sunday, but last minute my basketball director got pulled into another commitment, so I am searching for somebody to take that over. I am hoping Nelson Trujillo is going to do that, but that is still a work in progress. So as of now, we haven't started, but we are hoping if we can get some coaches and parents to help, then we can do that on Sundays, Sunday afternoons, through the rec basketball season, which goes through February. K through second basketball is starting in a couple of weeks. And then 3rd through 6th grade will start in January. Football is wrapping up. Football and fall baseball is wrapping up. We have a bunch of kids playing football. I'm not sure how many teams are full university, but we have a lot of flag football players out there. We also have quite a few tackle football players. They play through the Weld County Bears. And then there's a new intermediate league that plays through Windsor Loveland. That is no tackling, but it is blocking. So it's kind of a combo, so they're hoping that'll get kids into a better, when they get into tackle football, they have a better range of ability. And that is about it for right now. Any
That
questions?
sounds like a lot.
What's the ignorance on my part? The difference, you said there's no more cheer, but there is pom?
We do a Palms camp with the high school Palms team. We had our own junior bulldog cheer program that was for 1st through 5th graders. And then they practiced at Ames, and they would go to parks and cheer for our rec football kids, basketball games, stuff like that.
But that's now closed.
But that is, we are no longer doing that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions or anything? All right, well, thank you guys for all that you
Thanks,
do.
Jessica.
It's a lot
Thank you.
going on, a lot of moving parts for sure.
Yes.
All right, moving into our staff reports. We'll start with Jennifer with the superintendent's update.
So we thought we'd start, although it feels like a really long time ago, we'd start with a homecoming recap. David made an awesome video for you to have a chance to watch. Maybe. Maybe.
Oh, sad. You got more to your update? While I
Yeah.
pull this up?
For sure. No, it's okay. Like it used to be out. Jeff and Justin and I completed all of our strategic planning meetings with high school advising. It's always great to be with kids. They have such good ideas. So I really enjoyed that. And we're looking forward to Kyle doing the same thing with web leaders. And then Jeff's completed one, Kyle completed last night, right? And Mike had one yesterday, and he's got one more coming later in the week, strategic planning meetings with parents. So it's been great to be getting lots of input and feedback on people's vision for our next 5 years. Instructional leadership team, which are all the administrators, myself, and our instructional coaches. We all participated with the mentors in another training with the new teacher center. We're really working on how to use observations as a tool for growth. And it was a good day. We spent the whole day together working on it. It gave us a lot to think about as we're working on our professional growth pathway. I just wanted to shout out Rachel, who works really hard on that program. I think we have one of the best induction programs around. A lot of the charter schools, I think this year we've got Salida and Union Colony that participate with Rachel in that program. She does a great job. We did our first round of PLCs and ELOs, which are our teacher learning opportunities that we do on Monday afternoons. I want to thank Katie and Kyle. That takes a lot of work to organize. They have to recruit people, they make a catalog, they take care of registration. So they put a lot of work into making that a successful experience. I'm excited this year with the range of offerings that we have. And I also love that every one of those is either facilitated or co-facilitated by one of our teachers. And I know that that's not always an easy thing to teach your colleagues. So I really appreciate that they all step up to do that. Several of us are involved in co-facilitating those groups, and it was a lot of fun for me. I'm working with Stacy Copeland at the middle school. We're doing a neuroscience PLC. And so it's great to get to teach again, and she's an awesome partner. So I really appreciate our teachers who were willing to share their expertise. We get a lot of good feedback about like I said, we've only had one so far this year. We'll have our next on the 23rd of October. We opened the window on Monday for our school perception survey. As of yesterday, we had 501 students, 132 staff, and 134 parents who've already completed the survey. So off to a great start. And like I said, Monday was the first day that parents could take the survey, or students. So I think that's a great start for 2 days. So hopefully we'll have really great participation from that and get a lot of good feedback. The band room, the band is now back in the band room. We completed the demolition of the offices. We sealed the door to elementary music in between the band room and the gym. We built a sound channel and then added 2 more layers of insulation, and then we spray foamed all of the ceiling and sealed all the spots that were open, particularly between the gym and the band room was one of the biggest sources of sound. So we completed all of that, got the carpet finished. So they've only been in there a couple days, but the acoustics within the room, Clark says, are a lot better. And I visited all the spaces around it. He was really trying to ramp up sound yesterday. So I walked through, and when Mary and I did the elementary space together, she didn't even have kids, and you still could barely hear the band. So it's significantly more soundproofed in terms of isolation than it was either when it used to be here or when it was in the middle school. That sound travels in both of those spaces pretty far. So it seems like the engineering made a huge difference. We do still have acoustic baffles coming that'll go on the ceiling and around the room. And that our acoustical engineer described that as icing. That shouldn't make a tremendous difference, but that should be hopefully the last little extra bit that'll really help with the sound within the room especially. I wanted to thank, there are a lot of people who worked hard on that. Dennis and Jared both worked really hard with our vendors. People were coming all kinds of times. Our spray foam was in Houston up until the last minute, and so that took a ton of work to navigate, and they worked really hard on it. And then Clark and Kwame and Casey and Mary all had to work really hard to try to make sure that instruction was good and that they were keeping the kids going. It was great to hear the concert the other night, to see all the progress that they've made, even with all of the things that they've had to navigate with that. So I'm really proud of everybody for working hard on that one. I got to help with elementary track last week. That was super fun. That's one of my favorite activities that we do every year. I especially love that our whole PE staff does a really great job of teaching the kids the events, giving them time to practice and work on them. I think sometimes we ask kids to participate in events that they don't feel super well prepared for. And I think PE works really hard to make sure that all the kids are ready to do the best job. I also love watching the web leaders run the show, man. They are on it. They were directing those kids and sending them all over. They're great leaders, so I love that they help with that. And then probably one of my other favorite parts of that is listening to Mr. Miller give his speech at the end. I think he does a really great job of celebrating the kids who were successful. Talking about, this year we transitioned from ribbons to wristbands, but talking about how the kids earn the bands and celebrating that they earn them. And then he transitions, I think, masterfully into helping the kids understand if they didn't earn them, how they can earn them through being great teammates and giving their very best effort. And I think he does a really good job of how he explains that to the kids. So I think that's a great event, and that takes a ton of planning to pull off. So Casey helps with that, Nicole and Anthony all chip in. They did a great job with that. Today we picked the vendor. Sue and Ryan and I went through the bids and picked a vendor that we're going to use to replace the turf on the main field. We were really happy that the vendor we liked the most and who seemed to be the best equipped to do the job is who also aligned well with the low bid. So we were happy with that. So they've already been out a couple times to do site visits. We've got about a month that we'll finalize the design, finalize the colors. They'll do another site visit just to make sure they've got everything taken care of, finalize that contract, and then that'll happen. They're on standby for whenever football season's over. Obviously, at this point, we don't know when we might host a playoff game, but sometime in the month of November, we'll get started on that. We're excited that that's getting funded through bond dollars. And I'm excited all the teams that get to benefit from that. Obviously, it's going to be great for our football team, but there are a lot of teams that use that field, a lot of different programs that use that field. That's the only space that our elementary PE classes go to be outside. Our marching band uses that, our high school drone program, middle school orienteering uses it. So there's a lot of people that are out on the field. I also think that's going to pay us a lot of dividends for the practice field. As you know, we've had a terrible time the last couple of years trying to maintain that field. It just gets constant use. So I think that'll take a lot of traffic from the practice field onto the main field, and then hopefully then we'll have a lot better time keeping that field in really great shape. Because lots of groups, but particularly our middle school kids, are on that for all kinds of things throughout the day. So it'll be nice for them to have a nicer space to be outside. Because like I said, we've really struggled keeping that anything other than pretty rocky and pretty muddy. So I think that'll be good. We've also decided to solicit bids for the construction of the softball field. Ryan and Jeff and Chris and I appreciate Ryan took time to lay out, paint the whole field, laid everything out for us, all the property lines. We talked through some different options. We've settled on that one. Chris feels like that'll be the best fit between what we need and getting to be on campus. So we're going to build that on the current baseball practice field. So we'll solicit bids, and then once we get those bids, we can determine what we're going to have to stage, how long it'll take us, what we can complete and afford now versus what we'll have to wait on. If I were guessing, I think we'll probably be able to focus on the field, the fencing, and the dugouts. I think later we'll have to think about down the road, restroom options, concession options, light options, those kind of things. But I think what we'll know better once we get those bids seem to, the turf field varied, almost 400,000? Like there was a lot of variance in those bids. And it varies a lot within the year. There are projects that we bid at one time, and then when we finalize them later, prices are still in pretty good fluctuation. So we'll know better once we get the bids, what we can do now and what will have to wait a little while. So I just wanted to thank again, Chris and Ryan and Jeff have explored a ton of options. Visited some combined turf fields. We explored that as an option. They talked to other coaches. They've looked at other programs. So they've done a lot to try to come up with what seems like the best option. I think that spot makes the most sense to me, primarily because that's not a high demand spot for other competing interests. There aren't a lot of other things that spot would be a good fit for. And I think that was really sort of the stopping point whenever we discussed options on the West Field. There's just still a ton of things that we might need to put there. As you all know, we've talked about, is a fine arts center down the road, is a bigger gym that fits our whole school down the road, is other academic or instructional spaces. I think there are a lot of competing interests, and that's really the only spot that we would still have to build. So I think this is good, and like I said, it really helped. I really appreciate that Ryan took the time, and we walked through, measured off everything to try to make sure that it would be a good spot and that it would fit well. So I'll let you know when we get those bids, how they're looking, and what we think might work in terms of timeline. I'll also let you know there are a couple other things with the turf field that we're thinking through. We're trying to see if there's any kind of possibility to transplant the turf, the grass, from the current field onto some of the side areas. That's a little tricky with the time of year that we're doing it, but we are looking at if there's any way to reuse that turf to improve the areas on the sides of the bleachers, because obviously we've had a difficult time maintaining grass there as well. And then if there are dirt needs for the softball field, seeing if there's an opportunity to use the dirt that would be taken off the field, if we need to do grading work. So lots of details still to figure out with all of that, but I'm excited to get going on both of those projects. I think it'll be great. I think today was last day of October count. We finished the window. Looks like we're gonna come in pretty much exactly where we thought we would be. Everybody works really hard. I appreciate all that Billy Joe does with the lottery to make sure that all of our seats are filled and that we have the right number of kids. Charlene works really hard on the back end, looking at attendance every day, making sure that we've got the kids scheduled the right way to count them. And our teachers obviously have been getting lots of calls every day to remember to take their attendance and to get that all straight. Irma works hard on that. So it takes a lot of people, but I think we'll come in right where we expected to be. And then, as you all know, we had a little excitement. We've had excitement for, about 2 weeks that culminated yesterday in water issues. It's taken a lot of people working hard to try to figure that out. Jared's been working every Monday we've been off, coming in on the weekends to try to replace different pieces and parts so that people aren't impacted by having the water turned off. Dennis's connections with the city came in really handy. They came out last year. If you remember, it was a little earlier than this. I think it was the end of August when this happened last year. They came out and were pretty quick to tell us that their side of things were fine and we had to figure it out. And this year they spent time, Friday and again yesterday, spent several hours with the superintendent and both of his managers trying to help us nail down what the problem was. And I really appreciate that. They were a huge help. Jeff learned how to open and close valves. We had a whole crew that someone would go down and open them and close them and move on from there. They think that they found the permanent solution. I'm skeptical because we've been working on it for such a long time, but there was a check valve very near the main water that we installed at some point during construction when the building was built. That's not a required thing to have there. And it seems like that valve, there's a pin on top that helps it move, and that pin came out. And so we think that the valve was just sort of intermittently opening and closing. So they replaced that yesterday, and today things were fine. So hopefully that's what was wrong. And that's what we actually thought was wrong initially. We just thought it was another valve and had replaced that valve. So hopefully this is a permanent fix. Everybody feels pretty confident that that's the problem. And then I just wanted to say, it took a ton of people yesterday, despite the kids' fondest hope that we were gonna go home. Everybody chipped in so that we could stay. Kyle was filling up coolers and bringing them up. District 6 brought us over a case of hand sanitizer if we needed extra hand sanitizing. Ryan jumped on the porta potty company that we used, has kids here, and they brought over 10 and set up water stations for us. And so it took a lot of people chipping in to make that work, but I'm glad. I was not going to have what was affectionately named the Yellow Snow Day again. So I'm glad that we avoided that and were able to stay in school. But that did take, hopefully it didn't look like it took a lot of work, but it took a lot of work. So I'm glad we were able to make it through the day. And that took a lot of people to help. And like I said, the city was super helpful. District 6 chipped in with anything we need. They sent over some equipment and things for our cafeteria to be able to, because it happened during lunch as well. And we really were planning, the first estimate that we got was that it was probably going to be at least Thursday, if not Friday, until we had water again. So it was great how quickly everybody jumped in, either to try to keep the day operating smoothly or to try to nail down the problem. So I appreciate everybody who helped on that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Ryan, I had a question.
Yep.
I'm new to the ballgame here. A decision was made to do a softball field prior, or instead of looking at a fine arts building, or, how many dollars are there? Those kind of things.
We don't have a master plan yet. I think the board probably needs to decide if we want to continue to try to wait on the subcommittee process that we started, or if you want to consider contracting with someone to do drawings would be sort of the only other option I think might be a better option. We started that process, it's been a little bit over a year, had a meeting, brainstormed all of our options, sent those off to the engineer to come up with 3 choices for us with drawings, and then to come back and try to have a formalized master plan. But that stalled at that point, has been waiting on the drawings. So we've just continued with projects that we had funding. The turf particularly was a pretty specific set of funds that we could spend. And so we worked with District 6 to try to come up with, of the projects that we had on the table, what would fit within those funds. And that's where the band renovation, initially when we planned to spend that money, we were thinking we were going to have to spend all of it on the band room because we were hoping to build a new band room adjacent to the middle school. And then when that didn't happen, we had to go to Plan B. District 6 has been mostly cooperative.
Very cooperative.
In letting us change our plans, revise plans, give
Push
us
it down.
extension of deadlines. We had to ask for extra time on that project and also on the roof project. I don't remember if you were around for the conversations, but we've had a ton of trouble with the solar panels. And so that was supposed to have been completed this past summer. And so they have been really helpful in letting us sub in things that weren't part of our initial plan, and like I said, revised deadlines for us. So as we had money and specific things that fit within those projects, that sort of softball, I think will come purely from capital. Is probably the only place that we'll be able to fund that from. Hoping, we'll see. Sue and Jared and I are meeting tomorrow with the BEST grant people to see if any of the planned expenses that we have might be able to be offset by those funds. Possibilities for that could be the roof, part of the roof funds, part of the rekeying or the access control for the doors, or the boilers, or 3 projects that might be eligible for BEST funds. So we're hoping that we might get some savings from that then we could apply those funds to other things. But if not, that money would come directly from our capital fund.
I guess it just feels a little bit, I don't know, probably get arrows thrown at me. You know, we build a weight room, or I don't even know what you call that. And we've got a wonderful baseball field, and we've got the track, and we've got the football field, but, you know, what are we doing for the arts? You know, we've now done the band room, but, you know, what about, I mean, I hear nothing but problems with the auditorium.
We've devoted a pretty significant amount of change to the auditorium in the time I've been here. We've redone just about everything when we're finished.
Well, that's good.
We met, Eric can talk about this when we get to joint use, but we're prioritizing carpet, paint, some soundproofing, some of those kind of things. But in terms of the technical guts of the auditorium, we've replaced almost everything. There's a new projector, new sound, new lighting, all of those things have been upgraded. So I don't think there's a whole lot more to be done there, other than we're down to mostly cosmetic things, furniture, carpet, paint, those kind of things. So I don't think there are any major
Do you feel like
improvements on
the
that timeline.
students in the art things feel supported as much as the athletic students?
You know, I don't know if I know the answer to that, Carol. I think probably everyone, I think it depends very much the group you're on. I think everyone would like more support.
Yeah.
Obviously softball has been on the table for, I don't know, probably before I got here, several years now, asking for new facilities. So I think we've got renovations that we'd like to make at the press box that are capacity issues for, like, there are lots of things on the table. So I don't feel like I could give you an answer that would be super accurate in terms of how supported they feel or what else they would need. We've worked really hard with MLO funds to offset class supplies and all of those kind of things. They've expanded programs a lot. Mr. Butler's added a street art class that's super popular, and I think a lot of kids have really enjoyed that. So we've tried to help in terms of supplies and fees and those kind of things. We've added a kiln to elementary art. When did we do that last year? Gosh, it all runs together. I think it was last summer. So that she could add ceramics to her program, which the kids have really enjoyed. I think that's been very popular. So we try hard to get everybody what they
Good.
need.
I just want to make sure it's balanced
Mhm.
between
Absolutely.
athletics and arts.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's on the list that would probably be next on the to-do list is we can come up with it, and we've looked at maybe being able to spend MLO funds on that at some point as a greenhouse. That's been on the maybe list. It's gone vacillated in its spot, but that's another project that I think we'd really like to be able to take care of. That'll be a little bit more pricey when we tried to do, I think, some cheaper options along the way that didn't prove to be real lasting. I think it's just so much abuse from the weather that it's gonna have to be a really quality project. But that's about the only other thing I know that's consistently been asked for. I feel like we've been pretty lucky in being able to support teachers with whatever they've asked for with MLO funds. I mean, adding the drone program and some of those kind of things, we've been able to say yes to most of what teachers have asked for with those funds. If we didn't have those funds, it'd be a whole different story. But I think that for the most part, anything teachers have asked for and the extra kind of things that they've wanted for, I think USPTO has totally stepped up with being able to provide those grants. I think we've done between 15 and 20, is that right, to pretty much every grant cycle that they've allocated to teachers. So I think any of those like extra kind of things that people have wanted, that's fun. So I think that teachers feel like they have whatever they need. But in terms of they feel equally supported, I just don't feel like I gave you a super accurate
Yeah,
answer.
yeah, well, that is a tough one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have some similar questions about science and technology programs as well.
Mhm.
Are we funding them at an equal level as we are our sports programs? Maybe overall, maybe it's just because I'm new, I kind of feel uncomfortable with big projects not having a master plan. Either in our strategic plan, speaking that we're working on now, and our facilities master plan. I would feel uncomfortable approving this softball project because I don't know where it fits in everything else that I don't even know what's needed at this point in time. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I would like to see a lot more information on a master plan before we move forward with a big project like what it seems like you're talking about.
Well, it might be time to reshuffle our subcommittee too then.
Yeah.
I agree with Scott.
Because- Yeah, the subcommittee was tasked with doing that, but I know it hasn't had as much progress.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time we look at a shuffling of that
I
subcommittee.
just don't think we want to put ourselves in a position to hold kids hostage from things that they need because our
Right.
board hasn't
Yeah,
been
yes.
able to follow
So-
through.
So how do we move forward
accomplishing
quickly
that.
so that, because I'm seeing a bunch of nods, there's no official vote out here, so I'm seeing a bunch of nods of, hey, well, I don't like, I would like to see more plans. Can we expedite that process so we don't hold kids hostage with our hands tied? That,
Well,
I'm
yeah.
gonna wrap that up, but.
I mean, we have the ability, with or without a capital committee, we have the ability to make decisions. I mean, I
Sure.
think the decisions,
But-
that's a different conversation
I
about how
feel more
decisions are
comfortable
made.
if I do what.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I think that we need to move forward and try to figure out how to redirect the committee, absolutely, 100%. And that's definitely something that we need to discuss on how we wanna go forward with that. And, like Jennifer said, I mean, if we just decide that we just need to contract the dollars and have an engineer draw them instead of waiting for our current individual to do them, I think that that's a decision that we could definitely move on and we can make. Yeah,
But I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I have a question for Jennifer. You said that you got 3 bids on the on the turfus, or whatever we're gonna put on the field. But you didn't say, how much are the bids? You said you had 3 that you felt comfortable, or 1 you felt comfortable with. I just wanna know how much it is, and where is that in the budget?
So the 3 bids ranged, the one we went with, I don't know, I'm from 850,
Yeah.
and the high was like 1.3, I think, 1.2, 1.3.
Yeah, and then one in the middle.
Yeah, and
One,
then
I
there was
think.
like
'Cause
one
I
one.
know to do a football
Um,
field, what you're suggesting is usually $1 million.
Yeah, the bid we awarded it to was 850, and those are coming from bond funds, from the instructional designation of the bond funds that were approved before I arrived. I came in, and I don't know that Sue was even,
But I just want to, I don't see it in the budget, that's what I'm asking. Where is it in the budget?
Yeah, so it's not in our current budget, it's in the District 6 bond that was approved in late
How much is,
2000.
that's what, okay.
I brought
Thank you.
paperwork.
Thank you. Kind of jumping around, but I'd like to know where the money is
Yeah.
and how much is there.
so that's the original letter, and this is where we're at today. I have copies of everybody.
Let's go to the chair. Looks like we don't have a good chair.
Sue was prepared.
I was prepared, thanks to Jennifer.
I was gonna say,
Gave me a heads
I was fairly certain we would have questions, so I asked her to bring them all.
I like when she gives me a heads up. I can come prepared.
While she's passing that out, can we have discussion on how we move forward with a capital plan? Do we want to contract that? This predates me, so I don't know how it
Yeah.
was started, and I don't know how we redirect.
It came as a
Going fast.
request. It came as a request from me because I've never operated in a place that didn't have a master
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
And so as people were coming to me with requests, because currently all of that is within the purview of the superintendent to make day-to-day operational decisions about those things. We don't have policy that dictates the board being involved in those things. So last year, I think it was part of our retreat maybe, I asked the board to develop a master plan. So we decided at that time that rather than the entire board working on it, we would have a subcommittee like we have for other things. And our task would be to develop a master plan, to come up with a couple different options, and to bring it back to the board so the board could weigh in on which of those plans they thought we should try to operate for. Because since I've been here, we've had a huge influx of money in very restricted areas, but we have had a ton of money to have to spend on different things. ESSER funds funded the addition. The MLO technology funds we used for the video board. So there have been a lot of large chunks of change that have come to us outside of our typical funding streams. The bond projects were all approved, and that was all on the table before I started or any of this board was seated. So there were some plans that Dr. Gerner had worked with District 6, and District 6 advertised some parameters to both the general board funds and the instructional bond funds. Sue and I weren't made of the instructional bond funds until last spring, when they wanted to know if we had allocated the funds, if we had spent them yet, because we're on the end of, they should have all been completed this summer. And so once we became aware of that, we started working on the best use of those funds. We decided it was gonna be the band room, like, then I just explained to Carol where things sort of went from there. So I think having a master plan is important. I think that it definitely helps guide our decision-making. And I think it's been over a year since I asked for that, and we have money that has to be spent that I've got to make decisions about. And so I've made the best decisions with those funds that I thought we could based on what we had money for, what areas that money could be spent in. Turf isn't something that we would ever be doing right now out of capital funds. We wouldn't spend that kind of money on a turf field if that's where the money was coming from. But it does fit the parameter of what we can spend that money on. It's a large enough project that it's gonna take. And like I said, initially, I think it's 1.25. We were initially thinking that the band room, that's about how much it would cost to construct the new band room. Then when that fell through, we had to go to Plan B. So of the plans we already had available, had already had some bids and some conversation around. Like I said, there are always a few projects floating around that were, if someday happens and we have money, when can we put them on the table? And so that was a project that was ready to go that did fit the parameter. Like I said, that's not something we would ever have been doing out of capital funds.
Jennifer, what's the difference between these bond monies you're talking about and the MLO? Is it different?
Different
pots?
money. Mhm.
All right, so the bond money, somewhere here it says what you can spend it on.
Exactly. So the bond money is where we replace, like I said, that all started before I got here, and then we've worked on it. We replaced all the HVAC units with a big chunk of that change. We intended to replace the roof, was part of those bond funds. Doing the parking lots were part of those. What am I missing, Sue?
Playground,
Oh,
gymnasium
mhm.
bleachers, HVACs.
So those were already in process before I arrived, and then we've completed
Sure.
some of them, but we're coming to the end of those bond funds. Like I said, they should have been expended this summer, should have been the end of that. We, based on our planning that we thought was happening, the roof would have been the final sort of big project out of those bond funds. So that was one pot of dollars.
Okay, and did the roof get done?
Not yet. We've delayed the roof until next summer because we ran into so many issues with the solar panels. Tesla took over that contract, and it's been pretty difficult to navigate.
Are we still gonna use bond dollars for the roof, or since we're running out of time?
We are still, we got an extension from District 6 to still use them for the roof. There's a chance now that we might be able to offset some of that cost with BEST funds, but we won't know yet. That doesn't even, we won't get notified of that until like April to June of next year. But we are, the BEST representatives were tasked with doing a survey of any schools that hadn't been surveyed in the last couple of years. So he spent about 2 weeks with us this summer going through all of our systems with Jared, and he identified those projects as potential things that qualified. They typically prefer to do roofs and security updates, and like I said, we happen to have 2 major projects going with that.
And do we get to apply for the best, or is it District 6 that applies?
We get to apply sort of through District 6, but we have to meet our own fund matching. They set a fund matching requirement. Charters have to have their own, we don't get to use District 6 fund matching formula. We have to have our own fund
And we
matching
have-
formula.
Funds to match if we get the best?
Correct, because we're intending to use bond funds to fund all of those projects. We have the money set aside for the roof project. We've already paid about half of the door rekeying and access control out of MLO safety and security funds. So those are all, there's a lot of different pots, and a lot of it is just trying to meet, like I said, the requirements of which one will fall under certain avenues that won't meet with others. So the 1.25 is the instructional portion of the bonds. It had not a lot tighter regulations, but a little bit tighter. So we had to show the ways that the field is used instructionally separate from athletics. So perception-wise, obviously, that feels like an athletic program, but that's also the only space that our elementary PE uses. Like I said, our marching band uses it, our drum program operates out of it. Middle school does all their map making and orienteering from there. So there are an awful lot of instructional uses for that field as well. All of our house activities and those things are all happening there. So we had to get approval. We asked them for approval to make sure that they felt like that was within how they had advertised the use of those bonds. So Sue worked with Megan to do that last summer. Because like I said, we were trying to stack up projects that could be possibilities that would fit, that we could do within the time frame. Because there are some things that take way longer than that amount of time to get done. We didn't get a whole lot of notice that we had those funds to spend.
Is there a time frame with which these have to be spent?
They're supposed to have been spent last summer,
That's what I
this
thought. That's
past
what I was
summer.
at, yeah.
And then we got extensions for the projects that we gave them were the roof, and then for the band room, and then we told them if we didn't use the band room money that we were gonna do the turf field, because those were 2 ground-ready projects to go. Like I said, that we'd already started the bid process with.
Would there be sufficient funds to do a turf field and a drama center or a band room and arts, sort of an arts facility?
Not with the
No.
There's only 1.2 in
1.25.
there. Yeah, there's 1.25.
So we've
in that
put,
section.
Yeah.
it looks like about 150,000 into the band room reno, and there might be some baffling costs yet, maybe that was on that sheet.
That was on that sheet.
So about 150, and so if you go with the $851,000 bid, you got about 247,000 left out of that. and that is just for instructional use. And so that is not a viable pot.
So if you've
The
got
other thing
extra
that
money,
The other thing I'm a little worried about is the first part of the bond, you'll see on this, we were talking about roof replacement out of that. Well, that bond was for repair and renovation. So we can't use those funds to build athletic complex.
Yeah,
There's no way you can do that. It's just for repair and renovation. So if we end up getting the best grant with the roof, then we gotta figure out what else we can use this 1.6 million for renovation and remodel or whatever you wanna do with that. So now we're biting our nails because we really should have those funds spent, and we have these pots of money coming in, but it takes time to develop them and get everything set and in place and moving and vendors and all that, and then we're starting to run out of time, so.
That's what I
Yeah,
was concerned
yeah.
about.
and when I arrived, one of the first meetings I had with District 6 was concerns with the amount of money that we hadn't yet begun to spend. Sue and I met with Megan, I think my first summer,
Yeah.
to talk through. They were really nervous that we hadn't expended any funds up to that point. So we worked pretty hard on developing a spending plan. That obviously got way complicated by the fact that we got millions of dollars in ESSER funds at the same time. And so trying to get enough projects that we thought were the right things that met the requirements in the right way was tricky. And that's why we've done so many large projects.
Yeah.
Because we, like the addition, because we could spend a huge chunk of a particular grant on one thing and manage that. But we have stacked as many things as we can. Like I said, if we end up with extra money here, the next thing on the list that we've been working on is greenhouse. If we actually end up with 200,000, so we try to. Same thing with the band room. We wanted to see. We didn't sign the contract, solicit the contract with the turf people until today, until we gotten the final bill from Roach for the band construction, because like I said, prices have just vacillated so much that I'm not super confident until we actually get numbers, how much things are gonna play out to be.
With the greenhouse.
240,000.
So if we end up with 240,000, we'll move on to
The
greenhouse.
greenhouse wouldn't be renovation.
But it could be pulled from
The
this
instructional.
CCR
Oh,
pot.
okay,
So
okay.
that was part of the issue, when we had to send District 6 our plan to use the bond funds to be included in that vote. They told us that it had to do with repair and renovation, but then later, which this is what we just found out, this is why we just found this other pot of money, I got this thing, and at the bottom it said that we had been allocated 1.25 million for the educational piece. And it's like, okay, well, that's not was part of this plan that Dr. Gernher and I did way back when. So that's how we found that money. Anyway, it's there, but it is very specific on what you can use it for. Pot of fund for repair renovation, pot of fund for educational. Yeah.
And then our capital funds that are mostly unrestricted that we can use.
Well, our capital funds, we've got like 3.1 million of mill levy. So that has to be used per ballot language. And so safety, security, we've been using it for safety, security, transportation, curriculum, technology, and reduction of fees. That's what we've been using it for. That was the initial plan, and now it's changed to anything that's included in the ballot language. So we have a little bit of wiggle room, but I've budgeted it all under those same areas because right now we're not using it for anything other than those same areas, so. Another pot.
Okay, and so back to the original question, where's the softball field? What pot is that coming out of?
It would have to come out of capital funds.
Which is
Which is,
the 3.1?
No. If you, I know, you're okay.
All different pots. We got a lot of different pots.
That's not on there.
Yeah,
How about if I
a
do
lot
my
of different
report, because
pots.
on, what I'm gonna talk about is what Cheryl was kind of asking about. Are you
If-
okay,
Does
Jeff,
anybody have
if I
any other
have?
questions for Jennifer from her report? Okay, Jeff, if you don't mind, do you mind if we move Sue's ahead of you? All right, let's go ahead and move to Sue's financial.
So let's just jump to the capital, and the financials. If you go, it's probably the 4th page. And the balance sheet for the capital fund. You'll see that under the fund balances, there's 2 fund balances. There's an assigned fund balance and there's a restricted fund balance. The restricted fund balance is MLO dollars. That can only be used for ballot language items. The assigned fund balance is money that we have moved at the end of the year from the general fund into the capital fund for capital improvements. It's also money that we've gotten from the building corporation for oil and gas. That's all in there, and less things that we've paid for. So what we've got left is 1.15 million of unrestricted, well, it's assigned, unrestricted capital usage. So that would be where a potential ball field would have to be paid for. Because it's not gonna fit any of the bond, the District 6 bond or the mill levy pots. It's just not gonna fit in there.
And did you give us a ballpark figure on what that's gonna cost?
We don't have those.
Yeah, we
bids
haven't
yet.
even, we just decided that we were even gonna solicit bids. Yeah.
Or in other words, a kindergarten math.
I think it'll probably, my best guess would be around 500,000. But we don't, like I said, we don't have any bids yet to know how accurate that is, but that'd be my best guess. And again, once we got those bids, we could decide stages and what priorities were and what we could afford to do now and what we couldn't. And like I said, my best guess would be that we probably wouldn't be looking in the initial construction at restrooms, press box, lights, some of those
And
kind
that
of
would,
things.
that would come out of this assigned fund balance,
Yeah,
the
we have
1.1.
to. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, unrestricted, yeah.
What's the determination for how much money moves out of the general fund into the capital fund annually or biannual or however often?
So, when we do budget, I have you guys read 3 motions. One of them is moving mill levy, one of them is moving dollars that is, if it's 15% above our budget. So if we have a surplus, it's 15% of our budget amount, or I think it's, oh, okay, I'm losing my thought. I think it's the surplus has to be within 15% of our budget. Then anything in excess of that, I move to the capital fund. And that way we stay within that 15%, which is in the law.
And where's the Tabor money hidden?
Okay, and the Tabor money is on the general fund.
Not hidden, Carol.
Back to page 1 in the balance sheet in the general fund. It's not you, that's okay. If you go under that fund balances again, there's something called restricted fund balance, Tabor reserve. So that's 3% of our budget.
It's on.
It's actually 3% of our revenues, but we'll call it budget.
And I was always
Okay.
also gonna point out, to finish answering Jake's question, after we do the payout each year, when we decide how much you guys approve the amount that we're gonna pay out to staff each year that's left of the budget, after all of that, then
Then we move.
Move the remainder
Yeah,
along.
we use, yeah.
Sue, are the Tabor funds setting in the money market account? Is that where the Tabor funds are setting?
Sure. Yeah, they are. Yeah,
So
we've got-
so we really don't have $3.7 million setting in money market. We do, but part of that is Tabor funds.
Right, the cash is there. All we have to do is have the cash.
Right.
And if it says 665,000 on your books, you better have 665,000 in cash somewhere
Yeah.
to cover that.
And
That's
I-
correct.
I just wondered how much is in the money market account that could be used for projects if we needed to use money out of that account. I
Okay,
just-
so the next line of work business here is my next spiel. Because we have bonds, we have bond covenants.
Yeah.
The bond covenants require several things. Well, there's both state and bond covenants. Tabor's one of them, 3% of your expenditures. The other bond compliance requirement is you have to have 5% of your expenditures set aside, or your accrued payroll liability and your payroll expenses. Right now, we're looking at 1.4 million, plus our Tabor is about 2.1 million. So go back to the balance sheet, fund balance for the general fund. If you look under the fund balance again, under unassigned fund balance, there's 3.8 million there. So of that 3.8 million, we have to keep 2.1 million. You can't use that. We also have another restriction about days cash on hand. The way you calculate that is you take your budget expenses and you divide it by 365 days and you could take out some of your grants and stuff. I calculated that at about almost 61,000. If you divide that into the 3.8 million, you get if you have, you divide the 60,275 per day, divide that into 3.8 million, you have about 63 days cash on hand. Bond requires us to keep no less than 35 days. So again, we're right about 2 million, 2.1 million with that covenant. So if you keep about 2.1 million in that unassigned fund balance, you're good. So I figure you have about 1.7 million also in general fund. Overall, between capital and general, you got about 2.8 million. That leaves you at zero. So if you have to replace HVAC units at the middle school, which in the next 5 years, that's gonna have to happen. That building is 10 years old now. So by 15 years, we're gonna have to start replacing those units just like we did here. These units were 1.4 million. There's fewer units down there, may cost us the same. So you have to think, like what Scott was saying, you gotta have the plan of all of your capital things going on. You're gonna replace carpet, you're gonna replace all sorts of things. And you gotta have the money to do that.
So, is there a way to indicate on this balance sheet that 2.1 million that we have to have in reserve? Is there a way to add that item for those of us who
You
are
bet.
not quite smart enough?
I thought
to do
about
it?
that after I did the financials. I thought I should have probably just
Yeah,
put this out there.
that would be
So it's
really
visual
nice to say
and you have it.
required reserve,
Yes.
have it in that, so then we know we have 1 point whatever.
Yeah,
million.
and when I do the
That would be
budget,
nice.
I have those calculations factored in.
Yeah. I'm sure
Working
you do.
capital is what we call that 5%. I have all those days cash on hand to make sure that we're within compliance.
Sure.
So I can start putting those on the financial. I thought about that,
Or
but.
even
I
under
think
the-
that would help us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
We just
absolutely.
know
That's
what's
why I
going on.
kind of did that little box down at the bottom on the revenue page too, so you could see splits and what I'm talking about.
I was gonna say, because it's definitely tempting, if you don't look at all the places that
Yes.
are restricted
Yeah,
out of that,
yeah.
to think that we have a
Yes.
whole lot more
It would
accessible
be-
than
It would be
we do.
nice to make it for dummies like me.
For me.
This is what we have to spend if we, but again, it comes back to that master plan. Hey, we gotta save some of this for expenses
rainy
that are
day.
coming in the next 5 years.
And we had a
And we
rainy day not
do,
so many
yeah.
years ago, several years, when I got here, it was a big time
Yeah.
It was
tsunami.
tornado.
And then it was, COVID, and thankfully, we had some funds come in for that, but we were able to give raises through that COVID year because of our reserves.
Yeah.
So you do have to have some rainy
And-
day fund.
Just because you haven't had the opportunity to work with her very long, Scott, I will say in front of Sue that she's incredibly conservative and though and
Seems to be, which is
planning in those
fantastic.
things. So
You
we,
and I
I'm a
think alike.
squeaky type person.
we, so
You and I think a lot alike.
So if we're accused of anything, it's being on the other side. It's never being on the spending too much too freely.
I will never
side of
tell them
things.
yes unless I know they can do it.
I
Let's
love
put
that.
it that way. But yeah, the master plan is definitely
Yeah,
something
for
that
sure.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
It does need to happen.
Yeah. So, okay, so,
If we, well, do you
Go
want me to?
no, go ahead.
If we say, whoa, we need a master plan and we can't do this softball field, that really screws us up. So better we say, okay, do this, but in the meantime, work towards a master plan?
Or is there a
We don't
deadline for
have
softball?
any
No, I don't
contract.
think we have anything
Yeah,
set in stone yet on the softball.
we don't have any,
Okay.
we haven't done
Yeah.
anything with softball other than prioritize where we feel like we'd like it to be.
Table.
Other than having
Yeah.
meetings
Yeah.
and people asking.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I make a suggestion? Because quite honestly, I don't want us to do anything without Tom. He's been involved in that, and I think I'd love to hear his voice on all this. And unfortunately, I know he wasn't able to make it tonight. Perhaps, because this is an important enough, thing, what if we were to move this into a full board work session and expand that subcommittee and the input on that for at least a work session? Get the voices heard, and Sue, I would love to maybe have you there, because it seems like you've got a lot of the knowledge of the, oh yeah, we're 5 years away from needing HVAC at the middle school, and maybe Jared, who's got some of those other inputs.
Those people are
that-
all on the subcommittee.
Yeah, that's like, okay, how do we get those things, put them there, and then maybe move that back into a subcommittee to work through.
You know, I think.
A lot of those
Like, I
details.
appreciate that, and I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think a lot of those players are on the subcommittee. I
Right.
think, and I'll be very transparent, we've been working with Thomas to try to get drawings, and that's our holdup. That's our single holdup. And so I would like to move to add an action item to, once again, Sue, with your knowledge or whatever, but to allow Jennifer to spend the money on an engineer to bypass the, I mean, we appreciate the benevolence of Thomas being able to get things for cheaper and whatever, but when that cheaper equals years down the road, we're not getting anything. I think at some point, we as a board need to approve the funds or give Jennifer the ability to spend those funds on engineering or whatever so that we can continue to move along. And I mean, like I said, a lot of those players, they've had those discussions.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of those.
Not sitting on
discussions-
that committee, I
Right,
didn't know that.
and so I think a lot of those discussions have been had.
Okay.
It's really our hangup is getting those.
Yeah, we
getting those drawings done.
brainstormed all of
Is
the
there a
things
way
we would
to set a
need.
deadline? Sorry, is there a way to say, we need it by this time, or we're gonna hire somebody?
I think we've done that
Is
3
that-
times.
Is that,
Yeah.
I think we have.
I think that's happened about 3 times.
I'm in the dark on all of this.
Yeah, no,
Right, yeah.
absolutely.
I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus.
And I'm not either. I
It's
just want to
not.
be clear that I've communicated that to him and to Ryan on multiple occasions that we're losing an opportunity to spend money. Like we're hitting the point that. if
And so I mean, and it
we
doesn't,
spend-
I think that, once again, if we move and we add an action item, which we would need a motion for, if we add an action item and we take a vote to allow that to be sidestepped, it doesn't mean she needs to run out and get an engineer right now. If Thomas is still able to assist us and help, in a timely manner, then great, but if not, I don't know if you have a ballpark of what you believe that those drawings would cost or that final press would cost.
I don't have a good feeling about that. I've worked with different groups in the past that we've done that, and usually when you're doing a study, I mean, you usually allocate a considerable chunk of change, but I think that I know when we talked to Bob about doing the drawings, because we ran into the same issue with the band room, and so we worked directly with the architect to do that, and he wasn't gonna charge us a lot. I think that Bob's worked with us for, I don't know, you guys have been around a very long
long
time. I
time.
think he's worked with
Bob
us.
Shreves?
I think he's worked with
Okay.
us for
He did the original
ever.
building.
Yeah, I think he's worked with us for a very long time, so he's usually pretty reasonable and
Do we
working
know
with
like
us on that.
$15,000-$20,000? I mean, is that where,
I think
that'd be a safe
is
way at least to get
probably-
started?
I think that's probably safe.
And Sue, would you think, are you comfortable with somewhere that being in our budget that we could allocate that out?
Yeah, I think we need to, I mean, if you want to start doing stuff, we can use the capital fund, that 1.1 million. We can start with that and see where we go. Yeah,
Okay.
there's money there, yeah.
We're not in action item yet, but if you guys would like to move in that direction, I would entertain a motion to add an action item to discuss and vote on allocating funds for engineering.
I move to make such a motion.
Okay.
I'll
Motion
second.
by Greg, second by
I'll second.
Amanda,
Carol.
Carol. Okay, all in favor in adding that action item? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Okay, so that'll be added as 7.2 on our action items.
So, is there someone else who could then, because there are a number of us in the dark as to what's gone on in the subcommittee? Is there someone who could get us a capital planning report? I know that's been kind of passed over the last few.
Yeah, so we only have had one meeting. At that meeting, we brought all the needs to the table. We talked about everything and there are several people in the room who were there. We brainstormed all the things that could be possibilities. We talked through a lot of different options of, like I said, our biggest issue with any kind of master planning, if you're new to the group, is that we're landlocked and don't have anywhere to put anything. We have super precious limited space. So we threw out some ideas that we haven't explored before, like closing in the loop or building something in between the press box and the main building. We threw out any kind of option that fits within our square footage. We asked him to use that feedback. He talked to different people followed up. Kyle and Jeff and I with Ryan went out and tried to come up with a couple different softball options. We looked at, like I said, do we have enough parking to make something work to use the loop space now that we've got this parking lot functioning in different ways? So he took that information, was gonna draw up 3 different choices for us so that then we could use those 3 options to get some feedback to answer sort of Carol's question that she started with, which how do our constituents and all of our different stakeholders group feel about what's really important to them? And then the hope was that as we had feedback on those 3 different plans, that then the board could decide on which of those plans we wanted to use is where we ended. And like I said, unfortunately, that was, I think September is when we met last year. And like I said, we've asked multiple times for that, and I just, in full transparency, passed it on to the chair and asked him to try to take over, seeing if he could make any progress with that, because we definitely hit the wall, and I know that he tried really hard. So we just haven't, that just hasn't fallen through. So I think we're at the point that we need to just, and Thomas works so hard to help out in any of the and we've been having so many projects happening. It's not like he hasn't been helping with projects.
Absolutely.
They've done many things. I just think this continues to get to the bottom of the priority list, and I think if we hire somebody and pay them, we'll just have a better time frame and more control over when we want that done than we do when someone's doing it as a pro bono project that keeps getting shuffled. I think we all work that way, right? Like, we work on our pro bono projects when we have time and they're available. So I think if we pay somebody to do that work for us, I think we'll get it. We'll have a lot more control over getting it in a time frame that fits our needs better.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm off base, but I guess I feel uncomfortable spending that kind of money without board approval. Without the board voting to spend that kind of money, I just feel uncomfortable doing that.
For which one? Yeah, be specific.
For, if we spend $1 million to surf, put turfus on the football field, I think the board ought to vote on that. We're the ones setting your whole, it comes back to us.
And I guess that's where, you hate to have the parking lot conversations or the grocery store conversations, but that's where, people would come up
Get
to
beat
you
up.
and say, why did you approve that when, blah, blah, blah hasn't been done? And not knowing that we approved that would put you in a very awkward position.
And I
That's
think
just
that.
not current policy.
Right. Wow.
And we've done a lot of major projects in the last 4 years that have been at that
Yeah.
type of dollar range that the board hasn't been involved
And
in
again,
approving.
I'm walking into this kind of blind.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think defaulting to District 6, there should be, prior to us having a policy, District 6 is at a $250,000 cap. So knowing that we default to District 6, that is our policy. And so there is a policy in existence. I think some of it, that was pre-approved money and bond money that was already written in and already a done deal. I think that I could see that a little bit more. We're using the bond dollars that were already allocated, were already earmarked and spent in a way.
Was the board involved in that process too, or was that a plan that you and Dr. Gerner made?
I think it was a plan that
Well, Mark's
she
name
came.
is signed on it.
She and
so
Jared
yeah.
actually
So
worked
Mark was
together on
involved in it.
what needed to be repaired and renovated.
Yeah.
And
I'm just saying, I don't think that
know
was-
if she brought it to, I
Yeah,
can't
I
remember if
don't-
she brought it to the board. She may have just brought it to the board with explanation or something like that. I just simply don't remember.
Yeah, I understand.
But I would say, especially our dollars, our capital dollars and all stuff like that, I think that we need to make sure that we're following that policy with the absence of us having a policy, which is on the agenda for next month's.
Right.
And so we'll get there.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think we, at this point, will default to District 6 policy for that.
I can't argue the need, I think, because
No,
it's a
absolutely. I
classroom,
think it's
that
a-
field is a classroom. I can't
yeah.
argue the need, but I just feel uncomfortable that kind of money is being allocated without at least some kind of board nod.
Right.
And I don't disagree with you at all,
Right.
Greg.
Yeah.
Those were not the parameters I was
Right.
given to operate under.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about changing them.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're moving in that direction,
Yeah.
so.
And Jennifer, thank you for the update on the capital use
Yes.
committee.
And thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah.
Making all this money go
Yep.
to the best places you think possible. I
Yeah, it's
appreciate it.
fun. I certainly, in my 20 years as an administrator, have never had those kind of
Yeah.
funds, and Sue's been doing this a long time. I mean, we've been in unprecedented times of having availability of funds. That's
Yeah,
never,
usually we're biting our
It'd just
nails.
be nice to see a prioritized list.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
And we need to push that, we'll push that, so.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, Jeff, we made it to you.
Do we want to do that, or Sue, do you want to finish yours real quick, since
sorry.
we're kind of in the middle of?
I guess, yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
Any
Okay.
questions for Sue?
Well, we'll finish out capital since we started there. Really, the only thing I had in revenue and expenses, the revenue was just the interest from the money market. We got about $4,000 there this month. And then expenditures, we paid for some flooring. We purchased a basket lift to help Jared with some maintenance. And then we also purchased a storage shed for the high school science department. So
Is that lift the one that's out there in the parking lot?
Is that where you, I don't know where you
No, it's
parked
a
it.
big-
I think
Locked
that's
up?
the one we were using, that the contractors were using for the spray foam.
That's theirs.
It's the contractor, because it's not locked up or anything.
Yeah, it's yeah, Jared probably has it down by the
Well, there's one
shed.
sitting out in the parking lot.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
like
bet
a
you
car
that
though,
was-
it's like, it has a key, it's like, I mean, people can steal cars too.
That, I think
Because
that's,
there's a will.
the contractors had to use special ones. No, that's not ours.
It's not
That's
necessarily
the spray
like a
foam
little-
contractors.
Then they can get.
They had 3 of them and they moved 2 of them. I don't know why they haven't moved that one yet, but yeah, they had to use them.
Ran out of
Um,
gas.
Yeah. But they had to use 3 different lifts. They had to use special ones, because the big ones wouldn't fit through the door well. So they had to bring in 3 little ones.
So, going back to general fund, we do have a deficit of $189,378. But I'm okay with that because if you look at the 3 items on the revenue page that we didn't have in the bookkeeping for September, we actually are in a positive position and we haven't had our PPR reconciled yet. So, yay, love it. Really nothing major. We're at 25% of budget. We're at 23.3 for revenues and we're at 24.3 for expenditures. Let's see, what did I have for this? On the, where is that line item? Oh, on the revenue page, you'll notice that the second one there, where it says bond interest / savings interest, there was a large chunk of change that came in there. That was the dividend that we got from CEBT, who is our health insurance broker, savings from last year. So that money was budgeted in to help pay for health premiums for staff, goes right back to staff. That's how we were able to offer the one plan at no cost to the teachers. So that's where that's coming from. Expenditures, still doing good on salaries and benefits. Everything else really, it's starting to even out a little bit. Those larger items, again, there were things that we paid for in the summer, things to get school up and going, so I'm really not concerned. And my water is still on task. That's really all I had. The auditors.
Well, if you turn it off for a couple days.
Yeah, we should get a discount.
Why did I not think to check if Sue had a water key?
Yeah, maybe that was me, huh? Okay, the field work for the audit was finished the 29th of September. I was on vacation last week, so I haven't seen the draft financials yet, but I imagine before the end of the week I'll see those, and audit presentations should happen in November. So that is all I have.
I have a silly question. I think I
No,
already
there's
know
no
the
silly
answer,
questions.
But I'm assuming that all the financials are cash basis, not accrual basis, so that's why when we actually spend the money, instead of seeing it amortized,
Yeah.
some of the upfront
so
stuff.
the financials that I give you are cash basis. That's why I do that reconciliation at the bottom of the revenues. If it was accrual, I would actually go back and book all that stuff into all the payables and receivables and everything. And I don't do that until June, when we get to the end, because the auditors put our financials for the audit in accrual. That's the way it is, modified accrual is what it is. So that, yeah, it does go into accrual eventually, but this is cash.
Well, thanks for the great explanations always when there's one that's way over.
It's okay.
Cash basis.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I did look up that financial policy is one that we waived.
Oh,
So,
it is?
Yeah,
Okay,
so we're not
all right.
legally
There we go.
obligated. It says that we'll follow university policies for that.
Okay. All right, any questions for Sue? All right, I'm gonna cut you off one more time, Jeff. You wanna show us the, homecoming
that's how I'm
video?
gonna start
Oh,
my-
never mind. Yeah.
You start with homecoming.
So I asked David to put a fancy video together. Since usually he's stealing my stuff.
Hey, you can go for it.
Seems appropriate.
So I'm gonna put under you, Jeff, homecoming update,
Make sure it
Yes.
says great video.
great video.
I haven't seen it yet.
Time.
Oh my god.
Oh, I had all that.
This is Jennifer's report.
This is David's report.
Video, Jeff. Very good. Excellent video.
Good job, Jeff.
Let's get video.
Oh, now we get to watch Sesame Street.
I didn't make that video.
Ernie.
It's not
Yeah,
your video.
homecoming went really well. Tons of events and the dance went really well. The themes, it was an exciting week. I'm just coming off my third straight week of homecoming because ours and then Platte Valley is where my wife is and then Day Springs were, so I'm happy to not be in homecoming anymore. But it was a good time.
Well, and I just wanted to say, I know I've been here during some incredibly odd years, but I have never seen a football game like that. It was just packed. Jeff was selling tickets, I was doing stamps. I've never seen, like I said, people say, some people said that they had had games like that in the past, but I had never seen that kind of attendance. So it was fun. There were a lot of people there.
Yeah, it was awesome. Minus the little middle school fight I had to break up, but when middle schoolers all get their phones out to take pictures, it's probably not a good thing. I'm excited that we have water. I realized tonight as she was talking about it, that this might have been like a secret, like, job retraining thing for me. But I learned a lot about plumbing in the last couple weeks. And it's amazing when you say something about bathrooms being out, how 700 elementary kids and 600 high school kids all have to pee. So, the power of suggestion, right? Band and choir concerts were last week. Those programs have done a great job, and then they get a little breather now for a minute. I know Tiffany, our new choir director, was trying to really make sure she got her sixth graders a chance to sing before they switched classes at quarter. And now we're off to the next thing. Marching band has a competition. They had one the day of the homecoming dance. And then they've got state coming up last week of October. So that brings me into that, like, we're definitely getting into fall postseason stuff. We sent a kid off to state tennis today, so that was exciting. Morgan Parrish is qualified for state tennis. It looks like, I think we'll probably qualify for postseason and pretty much everything this fall. I haven't talked to Coach Betts about cross country. Maybe you can fill us in on that one, but.
I think
Okay.
you're going. I don't know.
Yeah, but volleyball, softball, football, marching band, tennis. I think we've got a good shot to be in postseason for all of those, so that's exciting. We've definitely talked some about the greenhouse, and Mrs. Adams would say we need to call it a learning lab. That's something that we've been talking about for a long time. It started out as sort of a science-art collaboration, but we want to make sure that it's a space that K-12 can all use, and looking at, how do we start working on some plans that way if there ends up being some money available. And Sue will tell you, I'm happy to help spend all the money. So don't tell her no, but you should probably tell me no once in a while. It's been good getting in classroom visits this time of year is definitely getting into formal observations. And so that's been nice with longer visits than just walking through. I finished teaching my social studies class for first quarter. It went pretty well. I probably owe some apology notes to those kids, but it was good to be back in the classroom again, to run my own grade book, to kind of experience teaching again. It's been 12 years since I just taught my own class. So went well. I know Mr. Betts was surveying which kids learned things from whoever they had first quarter, as they all kind of mix up again, and the green check marks were the kids that were in my class, and they did learn a few things. So we'll see how they do moving forward, but it was a good experience, and I think something that we want to continue to use and expand. And a huge thank you to the teacher who let me invade her room for second block every other day. So we are already at the point where we're starting slowly the process for new course proposals for next year. We try to ramp that up pretty early so that we can give kids a lot of choice in how we build our schedules. And we're still working through some kinks with the transition to quarters. We just finished the first quarter, and we're running into some weird grade book things and stuff that we're trying to make sure is sorted out with doing both quarters and semester classes. So that's going pretty well, and we let kids do a lot of changing of schedules with add drops, and what do we let them drop mid-semester, and what can they only drop at quarters, and figuring out new procedures for all of that. And we're still down a counselor because Abby's out for maternity leave, so we're looking forward to her being back in a couple weeks. But Kelsey has been a trooper in all of that stuff. So, and the transition with Amy as our new registrar has gone well. She's learning a lot along the way. I spent some time with her today trying to figure out glitches and course setup stuff, and she's doing well. Choir had 2 students audition for All-State. I haven't heard back yet how they did, but we're hopeful for that. FCCLA, they are headed to state, and then pending your approval later in the meeting, nationals. So they've got some things going on that are really positive. I hope all of the peaches you bought came through well, but we definitely had some issues with peaches. I think 33 boxes we had to get refunds for because they were rotten, either before we got them delivered or just after. And the company did a good job helping us out with the refunding of that. And Chloe I think she'd been a teacher for 5 minutes when all of that started to happen, and she did a good job working through all that with her club and with the company. And I got to go into catering, was it yesterday? Yeah, and they did their little chopped competition, and I got to taste test and give feedback and eat way too much. And none of the people that helped judge needed a sub today, so that was good. The kids didn't get that joke, but I'm glad some of you did. Justin Garcia is gonna go to a principals conference in November. This is one that Kyle and Mike and I went to last year, and we decided we'd try to alternate it with assistant principals and principals to give him chances to grow. It's through CASE, and it was well done last year. It's a good one down in Colorado Springs. The new teachers and staff we have are doing awesome, which is always good, because you never know sometimes.
Never know.
So that's been exciting. I joined the PLC with the middle school, looking at some of their structures and schedules and supporting students in transitions, because that's really important to us as we get those kids as freshmen. And Kyle isn't here anymore, but he's doing a great job leading that and kind of talking about what works best for kids and how are we supporting them and how do we do that transition well if we make some changes in structures and looking at different options. And that's good for me to keep an eye on, especially with our shared staff and with those kids coming up to high school. What are we helping prepare them for? My high school leadership team is great. I've got their good sounding board. They give me a lot of feedback. They are not afraid to say anything. And that has been very appreciated. Today, about once a month, but today was a meeting, I meet with the Patriot League principals. That's a good connection for me as we're kind of dealing with similar stuff. And then I also have a mentor this year through CASE, through their new mentoring program. I met with him a couple times. I think those are good ways to make sure that we're looking at what other places are doing also, and kind of just checking things sometimes when you've been in one place for a long time. It's good to be looking out and seeing what other people are doing and growing in those ways. Jennifer mentioned we got to talk to the advising groups as part of strategic plans, so I got into about a third of the groups with a student presenter helping me, and that was a great time just to hear from kids that weren't in trouble or out in the hallways when they weren't supposed to be. So that was a super positive experience, hearing what they like about our school and ideas they have, and we have pages and pages of notes to pass along to the strategic planning committee. I also got to lead all 4 class meetings in the last month or so. We talked about senior projects, we talked about internships with the juniors, we talked about a Safe to Tell presentation with the freshmen, and just things like being good neighbors and picking up our trash at lunchtime and doing community service hours and turning in your work and showing up to class. Those good reminders with class meetings. And then the play is coming up. So that's usually right around the end of October, and they've got, I think, 3 dates scheduled for the play. So
Do you know
get
what
a chance
those
to come
dates
to
are?
that. It's what?
Do you know what those dates are?
I do. It's the last weekend in October, so it's the 26th, 27th, 28th. And it's Clue is the production they're doing, so. And kind of on the note Carol mentioned, I think in terms of like arts stuff, I feel like we've been a little stuck at times just when it didn't work out to buy out the auditorium and everything having to run through joint use. And I've told lots of people that I think we need a good stick of dynamite. But really an auditorium big enough for the whole high school or the whole elementary school to fit in. I realize we're probably never gonna have one for all 2,000 of us. But right now, we can't even do just the high school and the auditorium. And certainly, we would love to have more space for changing and backstage and set building and rehearsal space and things like that. But when it's joint use, it just is what it is, and there's only so much we can do with it. So I would love to see us invest in some of those programs. And I don't know how that happens until we figure out either buyout or, what that looks like. But certainly, I think as part of that strategic plan, that's a huge part of assessing those needs and what we can add or put on the list at least. So and then we'll start spending all your money soon. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh, smile when it's appropriate.
So that's all I have for tonight. Any questions you guys have?
Why do you always want to spend money?
Always. Yeah.
I feel like that's the only time I get to be good cop. Sue likes to play bad cop.
That's the only time he comes to see me is when he wants to spend money.
That's the only time I get to be good cop.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What new course proposals are we seeing?
So I haven't put it out yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm just gonna start, but I know I've heard some expansion in the zoology. I know we've talked about, the counselors have talked about trying to add a course with some of their skills courses. What else? I think, I don't know if we added officially AP Stats last year, but that's one that's starting to gain momentum as we develop that data and statistics class. There's more to come for the aviation program through Ames. And then I think, like Chloe being new, some of our new teachers will start to learn that process and figure out what fits their passions and the areas of expertise also. So usually that's a 1 or 2 year in developing thing. Mr. Schwartz really would love to have robotics and an independent math topics class. We've not been able to gain enough traction or interest in those yet, but he's persistent, so he'll find a way.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I know as we talk about facilities, lots of kids were asking about things like shop. And I know we had that at the old building. That's an area that I think we need to have on our list. We've had great connections with Ames for getting kids over there for those types of classes, but there isn't, at this point, it's only if they already know they're interested, right? We don't have those sort of intro classes here just because of facilities, so.
We had a long discussion on that
We
at the
talked
work
about that a
session
lot.
just
Nice.
last week, so yes,
Good.
On the radar.
Yeah, that came up in several of my advising
that's good to know.
discussions. And I think as we continue to grow programs, that's definitely one that we want to keep in mind also.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And when we do get like new course stuff, I'll make sure to bring all that here.
That'd be great.
Any questions for Jeff right now? All right, we'll move into action items. This is the first time in a really
I'm like,
long
can we
time
celebrate?
I didn't see any
No
personnel items.
David and I are both like, yeah, we made it a month with no personnel.
So then, just for the board's information, 7.11, it's just been tradition that the board is approved, and given it's not to any out-of-state trips for our students, and so I'll let whoever tell us about the FCCLA national trip.
Yeah, their competition's in Alabama this year, so.
And this is, my understanding is more conference than competition. I think it's a growing program and we've got some passionate young ladies and I think it would be a good opportunity for
good.
them.
When is it, Jeff?
November,
That's all I need.
Yeah,
It's
it's coming
coming up,
in
it's not, yeah.
right.
No, it's soon.
Just as a new member, is there any reason why we wouldn't approve this? Any
If
concerns
we had
that
an
we would
Israel
have?
trip scheduled, we might have
We
some.
might.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
Just asking.
If we have
Parking
one.
lot,
An
you know, somebody
Israel
comes
trip.
up and says, you know, how come kids were going to Alabama? You know,
Sure.
gives you an opportunity to say, well,
They're going into a demilitarized zone that we just don't think would quite be safe, and, you know, I mean.
My mother-in-law was
not a
supposed to
whole
be in
lot.
Israel next week, so.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not a good time to go. Like, maybe we would.
I'll move for approval of the trip.
Okay, so Greg motions to approve the consent agenda,
I'll second.
second by Jake. Whatever you want.
One of Jake's.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Alright, motion carries. Alright, 7.2, which was to basically give Jennifer direction to engage support from engineering and the funding to get drawings done if we need to for the capital committee. Any other discussion about that? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Do we want to set a up to a certain amount, or just opening it?
Good.
I mean, I don't have any idea what drawings cost.
It varies a lot.
But now that we're stuck,
With that, yeah.
it almost seems like.
Like we
So that needs to be done.
And we have an engineer that's worked with us for a significant period of time already and has
I'll definitely
good
reach out.
history.
Bob's an architect. I'll definitely reach out to Bob first and see if he'd like to help. And to your point, Eric, we'll get back in touch with Thomas and
Yeah.
see how he'd like to
Please.
proceed with that.
Yeah.
And let him know that
Please.
we're willing
Yeah,
to pay for that we'd like to move it up to
priority.
a paid project rather than a pro bono option.
That would be good.
Then I would move to do that so that we can move forward.
All right, motion by Eric. Second by Jake. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? All right, good, motion carries. All right, discussion items. We are on our second reading of our amendment to the 8th amended and restated bylaws of University School. As a reminder, we have 3 readings before we can make changes to our bylaws, so this will serve as our second reading. And then next month's meeting will be our 3rd reading and our ability to vote to approve. The amendment to our bylaws is under Article 3, Section 3.01, subsection A, the very last line. So the A will read, elected board directors, the 9 board directors who are not the faculty, staff representatives, and not financial advisor to the board shall be elected by a vote of the majority or a plurality of the parents or guardians of students attending university schools, the employees of university schools meeting the 0.5 FTE standard, and members of the board of directors who may not have children enrolled in the school. Any questions or discussion about that amendment? All right, well then that is our second reading, and we'll move on to board reports and communications. I don't have a whole lot, a lot going on, great job with crisis management with water stuff and just all the stuff going on. I appreciate all that you guys do. I did get an email today, senior boards, like Jennifer had mentioned before, things moved up. You guys shifted this schedule a little bit. And so an email did come out from Denise today to sign up for senior board. So if you guys have never volunteered to listen for and be a part of evaluating senior boards, it's always a great experience. And so the date for that is November 6th, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And yeah, so Denise had sent out an email, at least to the parents. I'm not sure if it made it to this group, but most of you guys are parents. So I think that that's always a great area for us to be able to be involved in stuff too. So if you're available that day, I think it's from 12 to 4, make sure you jump on that and send her, fill out the form that you guys can do that.
And we are planning another round in the spring
Okay.
with the kids that are still working. But it'll be much smaller, so hopefully most of them are ready.
But yeah, other than that, that's all I have for today. So, anything from you today, Jeremy?
You know, I don't know that I have a bunch. You did your advising meetings things. And my big takeaway from that was that kids seem to really want some kind of a dance between prom and homecoming. And I think LULAC might be
That looks cool.
sort of spearheading that. I'm not sure though. So, yeah, other than that though.
Oh, that's cool.
High schoolers still want to have dances.
It's good.
Cool. We like that.
Cool.
Surprising. Absolutely.
I know, it's good.
All right, Scott.
The
All
rest
right,
of
so
the
I don't know that I've never sat by royalty before, so.
Bask in the glow.
Just financial policies on our future business, is that next meeting, we're gonna discuss that?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that,
Yep.
because that seems to be something a lot of us are interested in discussing, if we can bump that up.
Yep.
Make sure we
Our
talk about
first
it.
step, Scott, in policies, when we made our policy for policies, last year was to go to the faculty committee first. And we just haven't been able to get together. We're meeting, I think it's the 23rd. to review all of these. The boards, like I said, you added it to policy last year, but the board's always been pretty adamant that they want faculty input before they discuss policies.
Great. Fantastic, and again, thanks for all the work you guys do.
Greg?
Yeah,
I
23rd.
just like to commend Chloe Holmberg, the new Consumer and Family Studies teacher. She did an excellent job of preparing
Yeah.
food at a short notice. And here she is, only been here 4 weeks or something.
Yeah.
She had
She
to
did great.
prepare food and have everything ready for our homecoming folks, and she did a great job, she and the young people that put all of that together. So I'd like to just thank her and commend her for the fine job of helping with homecoming.
What I don't know that, Jeff, I don't think you mentioned, Mr. Uribe, but Chloe's jumped in as our co-sponsor for student leadership. So she was
Very cool.
especially busy that week.
Softball regionals this weekend here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very cool.
That's all.
Okay.
Eric?
Well, I'll say that if we do decide to go down the path of the greenhouse, I'd love to have some input on that
Awesome.
side of it. For the last 6 years, we've run a hydroponic farm at my shop with university students. Actually, in the next couple of weeks, we will be donating in through Mackenzie's senior project. Hydroponic farm is going into Mrs. Flores's room in the elementary school, as well as Mrs. Adams. And Mackenzie was there all summer learning how to do these so that she could go back and teach the next round there. And then we're working on some for the entryway as well. I also do sit on the District 6 FFA and oversee the Greeley West Greenhouse and the program that they got over there. So
Great.
be glad to bring a little insight or whatever I can bring into that
Awesome.
project.
We've got a senior, which I forgot her name, but we've got a senior who's working on it with Miss Adams for her senior project as well.
Okay, great. I guess the other one I had, David, maybe for you is, have we started getting the students involved in helping you make these videos?
Very soon.
Good.
We've tried a couple different things. I've had some job shadows and some internships and stuff, but not a whole lot of momentum yet. But it's trickling in.
Okay.
There's some interest there for sure.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity because those are immediately applicable job skills
Absolutely.
to be able to move with some of these students. So that would be great if any opportunity you could make with that.
We're actually one of the new courses, fourth quarter maybe. I'm partnering with Miss Bjornson for a media and journalism class. As I'm not teaching anything, but I get to kind of add like a real world voice of like, this is what I do and this is how, some practical skills of this is how you make videos, this is how you do some marketing, and so some of that's happening next semester. So maybe we'll get some more students out of that who can use a camera.
That'll be awesome too.
Really use a camera, not just the phone.
Right.
They use a camera lots.
Well, that's all I've got.
Okay, Justin?
I'll echo Jennifer on the homecoming game. It was huge. I haven't been to a game in a long time that was that big here. So the security team was on high alert to handle quite a few things that I noticed. So big shout out to them on that. And then I'm sure that whole week was just exhausting for everyone. So my kids really enjoyed it in elementary school. So they had a fun week, and it's just good to see the school spirit.
It's great.
Maybe growing and getting that momentum back, so it's really nice.
Jake?
Just pile on with everybody else, homecoming was a lot of fun, a lot of activities. Kind of glad it's over though, Jeff. I didn't have 3 of them, but there was plenty of prepping and
I was tired.
high school girls going to homecoming. It's exciting. The FCCLA, is that a newer club here?
No, it's been here a long time. It was
Definitely
Tanya
seems like-
Sims, Mrs. Valentine. It's, yeah.
It
It
seems like
was,
there's new excitement this year or something.
We
I
had,
didn't
what,
hear-
2 years ago, Michaela went to nationals, and
yeah.
had some really good competitors in the last couple of years. So I think there's definitely, I think Miss Palmer created some energy and enthusiasm, and Chloe all signs point to lots more energy and enthusiasm.
Cool. Well, I definitely have somebody involved, and yeah, I've heard a lot about it this year, and I'm like, what? So, kind of new around our house, but it sounds like it's reinvigorated or whatever.
I think so.
So that's cool.
Yeah, she's done a great job.
Nice.
Jake?
No, just echo you guys, the game was pretty amazing. I mean, going to games for the past 5 years here, I don't think I've seen, I think I saw you and talked to you, I don't think I've seen that many people, so.
It was crazy.
It was really good. Yeah, and it'd be great if they could use some of that turf from the field to, you know.
Do
on the
some
fields.
side work,
But,
yes.
we're not gonna do like a yellow or a red or a blue turf field, are you?
Well, that would be a great reason why Mr. Casey isn't involved in the decision making for that process. Because I feel certain there was a conversation about having a blue field at some point, so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that got vetoed.
Maybe some blue lines.
Looks green to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's, I was gonna say,
There's a
that's the
rendering.
first
Oh, nice.
draft of what it might look
That's
like.
awesome.
Yeah. But I do believe someone thought it might be a good
Someone
idea
did.
to consider that, yeah.
Be unique.
Wow, it would be unique.
Wouldn't stay there.
All right, Amanda?
I got to take half the 6th grade to Farr Library on Tuesday. The other half are going tomorrow when it's cool. But the library staff, they are so complimentary of our students. Our students just rep us so well when they go out into the community. So I just have to give a big shout out to our kids, and they're doing such a good job. So, and it's been great to see parents coming into the building for conferences, and we had a really good turnout last night. Middle school had their gym conference, and then they're doing individual conferences over this week and next week, but we had a really good turnout. So.
That's great.
Carol?
Jennifer and I met yesterday, or was that just yesterday?
Just yesterday.
With somebody from the Success Foundation about a food pantry in university schools. We are slated, they got a grant through the Well Trust, and we are part of that grant, and we are slated to get it for the school year 24-25. And the trust will give us a freezer, a refrigerator, and shelves. And then we need to find funding for the stocking and the ongoing. But I think it's pretty exciting, and it's nice.
It's great.
We're the third tier. So all these people can make all the mistakes and figure out all the stuff, and then we can just benefit from it and smooth sailing.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so you guys see our future business, some of the stuff that we're gonna be working on over the next couple of months. So we will get those rolling and going. Our next regular meeting is gonna be November 8th, and then also remember to mark your calendars. I know that we got the calendar invite, but November 10th will be our next work session as well, so that following Friday.
I was gonna say, I've got a joint use. update.
Oh, sorry, I missed you. Sorry, just move right along.
So, so Jared's has been meeting with the representatives as they look at the State Best Grant Program, and the auditorium roof replacement may also fall under that. So as we look at what we do with theater and the auditorium, that may help. Also, we got the glow-in-the-dark strips mounted in there after the Swan Dive closing of Peter Pan. So, and hopefully we'll get a more permanent edge lighting solution in there fairly soon. Dave's still working on bids for the sound treatment system. But the kind of looking at different things for upgrades in there that we're evaluating is obviously the roof replacement, ceiling sound treatments, furniture in the entryway, paint across the board, carpeting. We're getting bids on that, and then looking at what it might take to repair the curtains in there. And so there's a lot of bids going on right now to see, what is everything going to cost, and then we'll figure out what can we actually afford. And but those are the discussions are being held right now.
Thank you. I guess, do you guys have a fundraiser report?
No, really, I'll be with the Colorado Cornhole Connection guys this Friday working a different event. So I hope to be able to nail them down and get some more info, because I did get an email back from my inquiry, but And once we have a few more details, we'll just get a date picked, probably ask for a little input from you,
Yeah.
Jennifer, for in the spring, after we look at the calendar. And then we have, I think, 7 people that we weren't able to meet in person, but everybody kind of had stuff going on, but we have emails, so I've got a little list of people
Nice.
that are interested in being on the committee, so we'll bring all them in and see if, maybe we'll do the next one virtual or something. Since everybody kind of had scheduling conflicts, but that's all I've got for this month.
Ryan, I noticed we didn't add this time. Do we want to add foundation as a standing
Yeah.
item under there?
We will have a report next month. So, all right, anybody have any other business that they would like to bring forward or talk about or anything like that? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Jake
I'll second.
and Justin, all in favor? Meeting adjourned.
And I'll send you a reminder, don't forget your school visits on the 3rd
Oh yeah,
also.
school visits on the
Yep.
3rd, next Friday.